a disgrace!" My mom's voice shattered the air like glass breaking. The guests at our engagement dinner froze. Her hand came next, hot and loud across my cheek. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I just stood there, staring at the woman who once tucked me into bed, now throwing me to the wolves for refusing to marry the man she handpicked. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I looked at Mark. His arrogant smirk told me he wasn't on this. He wasn't even surprised. My mom kept yelling, accusing me of shaming the family, calling me selfish for rejecting a man who could make all our problems go away. Then she told me to get out, kicked me out of my own home. I walked out, barefoot, wearing a dress she picked, into a night that was colder than her heart. No one followed me, not even Dad, not even my brother Shane, who just stood there watching like it was a scene from a movie he didn't care for. I was 23, broke, and officially alone. But I still didn't say a word. I wasn't going to beg, not this time. I'd begged enough. I walked 3 miles that night with my heels in hand, tears drying on my face. My phone buzzed. I thought maybe, just maybe, one of them had grown a heart. But no, it was an Uber cancellation from the ride Mom had promised. That's when I knew. I was dead to them, and they were dead to me. I slept at a motel that smelled like wet carpet and cigarette ashes, used my last $60 on the room. I stared at the ceiling all night, not crying anymore, but burning with something else. I wasn't going to disappear. I was going to come back one day, not for revenge, but for silence, the kind that speaks louder than screams. Flash forward 12 years later. I stepped out of a private jet in crisp black heels that cost more than the house I grew up in. My sunglasses caught the sun just right as I held my daughter's hand, her soft curls bouncing with each step. "Mommy, is that them?" she asked, pointing ahead. There they were, my mother, my father, my brother, standing on the edge of the tarmac, mouths open, eyes wide, pale as ghosts. I smiled. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurt, just above it all. But it was the silence that did it. That frozen, shocked silence. The one that said everything. The one they couldn't take back. And it all started with one slap, one suitcase, and one broken heart that didn't stay broken for long. This is only the beginning. They didn't move. Not when I stepped onto the tarmac. Not when the jet engines cooled behind me. Not even when my daughter let go of my hand and ran straight toward them. Toward the strangers, she didn't. My mother didn't respond. Her hand twitched, maybe from guilt, maybe from shock, but she didn't reach out. She looked like she'd seen a ghost in broad daylight. I walked slowly toward them, my heels sharp against the concrete, each step deliberate, controlled. This wasn't for revenge. This was for dignity. 12 years, I said, stopping a few feet away. That's how long it took me to build a life worth walking away from you for. My father swallowed, his Adam's apple bouncing in his throat. My brother shifted uncomfortably, like a boy caught doing something wrong in church, even though guilt had never once touched him before. "She looks like you," Shane finally muttered, looking at my daughter. "She is my last name," I replied, "and none of yours." The tension sliced through the air. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The silence they once forced me into, I turned it into steel. 12 years earlier, I'd taken a job cleaning hotel rooms and bussing tables in a cafe that served people like the man my mother wanted me to marry. Mark drove by once in his black BMW and tossed a $20 tip at my feet, like I was a dog he'd trained. That was the last time I saw him. I used that $20 to buy a secondhand laptop. I taught myself code, marketing, then finance, worked 3 jobs at once, slept 3 hours a night, and poured everything into a project I didn't even name until 5 years in, Salt Plus Grit, a digital consulting firm for small-town businesses run by women just like me, rejected, underestimated, kicked aside. At year 7, Salt Plus Grit got acquired by a private investor for $6.2 million. I stayed on as CEO. By year 10, I was buying companies like the one Mark's family used to run. By year 12, I wasn't just a woman with a daughter, I was a woman with options. "You were supposed to marry up," my mother finally said. Her voice cracked. "I did," I replied. "I married up from everything you thought was good enough for me." Her eyes welled. "I thought I'd feel satisfied, but I didn't. It wasn't about pain anymore. It was about proof. Proof that I could rise without bitterness, that I could create a legacy out of what they left behind." My daughter tugged on my hand. "Can I go back inside the plane?" she asked. I nodded. She skipped back toward the jet like it was just another Tuesday. My mother looked at me like she'd missed 1,000 chances to say the right thing, but I'd given her time, years, and all she did was fill that silence with shame. "Why now?" my father finally asked. I looked at him, and for the first time in my life, I saw a man smaller than the fear he used to make me feel. "I didn't come back for you," I said softly. "I came back because my daughter deserves to know what she walked away from." Then I turned my back to them, exactly the way they once turned their backs to me. Only this time, I walked away with dignity in my spine, a legacy in my hand, and a little girl on board who would never be taught that love comes with conditions. It was year 3 when I hit the bottom so hard, I almost stayed there. A leaking apartment in Jersey City with roaches in the walls. I was 26, barely surviving off waitress tips and a remote data entry job that paid pennies. My hair was falling out from stress. My stomach ached constantly from cheap instant noodles and bottled water dinners. Then came the test. 2 pink lines, a baby. I stared at the test for what felt like hours, sitting on a bathroom floor that smelled like bleach and mold. No one to call, no one to lean on. Not my mom, who once told me a woman who can't obey doesn't deserve a roof. Not my dad, who avoided confrontation like it was a fire he might get blamed for. And not Shane, my golden child brother, who could burn the house down and still be called the favorite. But life's funny like that. When everyone walks away, you either collapse or you rise. I rose. Not with magic, with madness. I cleaned tables with my belly growing under a faded apron, took night classes, learned code from scratch on a second-hand Chromebook that took 15 minutes just to boot, slept on a sofa, not a bed, so I could sublet the bedroom and buy diapers when the time came. And then I met her, Dana, a retired software engineer turned small business owner. She came into the diner once a week, always asked for a booth, always tipped like she knew what hunger really looked like. One night, after I dropped her order, she pulled me aside. "You have eyes that don't belong here," she said. I laughed bitterly. That's probably the nicest insult I've had this week. But she wasn't joking. "Show me your work," she said. "I've seen you coding on breaks." I almost cried, not because she offered me a job, because she saw me. Dana gave me a shot. Entry-level, remote work from my couch. I took it and turned it into magic. I built prototypes, managed social media campaigns, rewrote brand strategies from the ground up. I didn't just do the job, I devoured it. By the time my daughter was born, Ava, with eyes like mine and lungs like a fighter, I was already building Salt plus Grid on the side. Nights, feedings, deadlines, I did them all like my life depended on it. Because it did. At age 3, Ava asked me, "Why don't we have a grandma like the kids at school?" I told her the truth. Because some people love you only when you obey. But that's not love, that's control. She nodded slowly. "Then we don't need them, do we?" "No, baby," I said. "We build new things now." And we did. By the time Ava was 8, she could read profit-loss statements better than most adults. By the time she was 10, she sat beside me at board meetings because I didn't just want to raise a daughter, I wanted to raise a woman who knew her worth. 12 years after that slap, that shame-filled night, that silence, I gave them the one thing they never gave me, a chance to watch, not to participate, not to be welcomed, just to watch. And watching me walk away, again, was the cruelest, kindest justice life could offer. 2 weeks after that jet landed, after that unforgettable silence, I got a letter. Not an email, not a phone call, an actual handwritten letter with my mother's tight, slanted cursive on the envelope. Ava brought it to me while I was reviewing campaign pitches in our sunlit kitchen. "Mom," she said curiously, "who writes letters anymore?" I took it gently, already knowing who it was from. I didn't open it right away. I just stared at it for a while because, for the first time in my life, she wanted something for me. Not obedience, not silence. Something else. A second chance. That weekend, Ava and I were invited to a private fundraiser in Manhattan. Old money, clean suits, glass walls, and staged smiles. Ava was bored out of her mind until she spotted the piano in the corner. She walked over, touched the keys, and asked the event host if she could play. People chuckled, but then Ava sat down, and the room went still. She played a haunting arrangement of Clair de Lune, the kind of sound that makes even powerful people go quiet, the kind of performance that makes you feel like you're hearing pain and power at the same time. And then, from across the room, I saw her, my mother. I hadn't invited her. She wasn't supposed to be there, but somehow she was, clutching her purse like a lifeline, standing against a marble wall, watching the girl she had never met play music with a soul she never nurtured. When Ava finished, the applause was thunderous. My mother was crying. After the event, she approached us outside the valet. "She's breathtaking," she said softly, reaching out. Ava looked at me. I didn't say anything, just watched. My mother knelt, trying to smile. "Do you know who I am, sweetheart?" Ava tilted her head. "You're the one who kicked my mom out, right?" My mother's face went pale. The air between us grew heavy. "I made mistakes," she whispered. "I thought I was protecting you. I didn't know." "You didn't want to know," I interrupted. "There's a difference." Her hands trembled. "Can I take her to lunch sometime?" Ava looked up at me again, waiting for permission. I didn't speak. Instead, I handed my daughter my car keys and told her to wait by the SUV. Then I looked my mother dead in the eyes. "Lunch is earned," I said, "not owed." A week later, another letter arrived. This time, it was longer. A confession. A breakdown of all the ways she believed silence was strength and control was love. She admitted she was wrong, that her love had always been conditional, that she never understood how powerful daughters become when you abandon them, but they survive anyway. She said she saw Ava and saw the woman I became, and she envied me. Not because I wanted to hurt her, but because some forgiveness doesn't need a speech. It just needs a boundary. Ava? She chose on her own. One day, she wrote her grandmother a letter back. A short one. "I'm happy, Grandma, but my mom is the reason why. If you ever want to be part of that, you have to start with her." That was the first time I cried in years. Not because I was sad, but because Ava had become everything I wasn't allowed to be, and she got there by watching me walk through fire without turning to ashes. It was a warm afternoon in late spring when the reunion happened. Not planned, not formal, just inevitable. Ava's school was hosting a legacy luncheon where students could invite a family member who'd influenced their path. I assumed Ava would pick me, like she always did. But the morning of the event, she quietly asked if she could invite someone else, too. I raised an eyebrow. "Who?" She hesitated. "Grandma." I felt the old wounds tug at my ribs, but I trusted my daughter. If Ava was extending a hand, it was because she had found a reason worth trying. So I said yes. I watched my mother enter the auditorium like a woman who knew she had no right to be there, but was still hoping to earn one. She wore a pale blue blazer, hair pinned up, hands shaking as she clutched a modest bouquet. When Ava stood up to speak, the room grew still. "My legacy," she said, voice clear and proud, "comes from a woman who built a future out of nothing. She taught me that silence can be louder than words, and that survival is sometimes the most graceful kind of revenge." The crowd clapped, but then Ava added, "And today, I invited someone else. Someone who once made the wrong choices, but is trying now." My mother gasped softly. Ava turned toward her and said, "Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about not letting hurt control your story." Everyone turned to look at my mother. She was already crying. After the event, we sat in the school garden under a willow tree. The silence between us wasn't angry anymore. It was tentative, like two people relearning how to speak. "I don't deserve this," my mother said. "I'm not offering it because you do," I said. I'm offering it because I don't want Ava to grow up thinking grudges are the only inheritance. She nodded slowly. I kept the letter Ava sent. I read it every night. I figured. There was a long pause before she reached into her bag and pulled out something I never expected. The engagement ring. The one Mark gave me. The one she forced onto my hand all those years ago. I kept it, she whispered, because I thought I was right. I thought if you ever failed, I'd give this back and say I told you so. But I never failed, I said quietly. She nodded, eyes glassy. No, you didn't. You rose. And then she dropped the ring into my palm. Do with it what you want. Sell it. Burn it. Bury it. Just know, I don't hold the past anymore. You do. I gave the ring to... She looked confused. What am I supposed to do with this? Whatever you want, I said. Just promise me one thing. What? Don't let it decide who you are, or who you love, or who you forgive. She smiled. Deal. Years passed. My parents never fully healed, but they tried. And sometimes trying is enough. Ava grew into a woman stronger than I ever imagined. Sharp, kind, unshakable. And one day, as I stood beside her, watching her daughter run across the lawn, I thought about that slap, that night, that silence. It didn't break me, it birthed me. If this story hits you even a little, just hit that like button. It helps more than you think. Don't forget to subscribe if you've ever felt this kind of pain. You're not alone.